Welcome to another Pirkei Avot text explication presentation with me, Rabbi Drew. We are in the third chapter and now on the fifth text in the third chapter. We have, instead of the tripartite statement that we have been seeing throughout Pirkei Avot, we do have a very interesting double liner, as it were, in this text. We have Rabbi Nehunia ben Hakkanah. Let me say that again. Rabbi Nehunia ben Hakkanah. Not someone who appears altogether that frequently or really even that much in rabbinic literature. But here's what he says. He says, everybody who accepts upon themselves the yoke of Torah, a yoke. It's an interesting imagery, but I'll deal with that. Anybody who accepts upon oneself the yoke of Torah, they pass from that person the yoke of the kingdom, and also the yoke of the way of the world. Derech Eretz it is in Hebrew, the way of the world, way of the land, worldly concerns you might translate it as. Conversely, he also says, anybody who removes from oneself the yoke of Torah, they place upon this person the yoke of government and the yoke of worldly concerns. Really interesting. Now, I did mention that this very much is not in fitting with the numerical theme of Pirkei Avot more broadly, but it does touch upon one of the very common content themes, which is the study of Torah. Now here, Rabbi Nehunia ben Hakkanah is using it in an interesting way. Well, first of all, there's the imagery. When we talk about yokes, he very much means like the yoke of we would see a farmer using, right? And they were a much more agrarian culture than we are today. So the idea of a yoke, right? Accepting the yoke of Torah, it's an interesting, I almost want to call it a dichotomy, right? We have this interesting dichotomy. You either have, at least in the way Rabbi Nehunia ben Hakkanah puts it together, you can either accept the yoke of Torah, freeing yourself from the yokes, twin yokes, as it were, separate yokes of both the government or the monarchy, the government, the kingdom, right? You don't have those worldly concerns, and you have just the Torah, right? And if you remove it, then those are put on you. Really interesting, because one of the things that makes me think about is oftentimes people consider in stark opposition the idea of religion and worldly concerns, and we do definitely see this sometimes with some people who are particularly religious and they don't want to deal with worldly concerns, imminent concerns. It's an interesting way for him, and also just for some context or at least the political context in which Rabbi Nehunia ben Hakkanah is operating, they have these like Roman colonialist overlords. So that's not a good thing, right? He doesn't want to be dealing with that. I don't know why he doesn't want to deal with Derech Eretz, dealing with stuff of the world. Not really clear. I will say this is not a universal consideration, but it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting perspective of having the yoke of Torah somehow being separate and being different than the worldly and governmental concerns. So it seems like for him, this is a good thing. Studying Torah, endeavoring, sort of focusing on it, and that really taking up one's focus and really thinking about that's of central concern and importance. So, all right, interesting, and thank you so much for watching.